Welcome to the Travel Fuel Podcast. I'm your host, Todd Duplain. We're the show for the person that has a travel bug, but maybe doesn't know where to go, where to start. You got a couple of vacation days banked in the book there and looking for something to do with them. Hopefully we'll give you some ideas. We've researched, planned, and gone on these trips ourselves, and we'll go through all the details from how we got there, where we stayed, what we did, activities, where we ate, some coffee shops, all of it. So if you want to use this as a blueprint, I hope you enjoy, or if you can fuel some inspiration for your next adventure, at the very least, we hope you find that. So today I'm joined by my friend Scott Anderson, and we're going to discuss a trip we did 2 summers ago to Zion, Bryce Canyon, and a nice stay on a Bro-Mantic Bison ranch.
Fantastic.
So welcome, Scott. Thanks for joining, dude.
Thanks for having me here, Todd.
So we did this trip on a Wednesday through Saturday in early September. And as far as how we got there, we drove. We're based in Ventura County, Southern California. It's about a 7.5-hour drive. Other options, you can get there from Vegas, about 2.5 hours, or Salt Lake City, about 4. But for us to fly into Vegas and then drive, it didn't really make a lot of sense. So we just went ahead and did the drive and managed to breeze through Vegas without stopping at the sports book like we thought we might. So we arrived in Springdale, which is the town right outside Zion, around 4 p.m.
That's right.
And we immediately headed into the park. And I think when we got in there, we originally were planning on hiking Angel's Landing.
That's right, but it ended up being closed.
It
right?
was closed.
Yeah.
We didn't know. So probably research that before you go, figure out what's closed. They got a lot of weather that causes rock slides, and
especially when you spend 7 hours driving and you hype up what you're going to do for the first thing, and it's closed.
Yeah, exactly. So but those rangers, when you get into the park, they give you, like, I don't know, it's a newspaper for lack of a better description, and it's got all the details of every hike and activities and everything in the park. So we grabbed that and went to the visitor center, parked for a minute, and sort of talked to the rangers, and I think we decided that Observation Point would be the next best thing.
Yeah, it's the big one.
It is. So in Zion, they have shuttles. You can't really drive around too much as far as parking is a little limited. So they have shuttles at the visitor center. They'll take you to any one of, I believe, 9 stops sort of along the drive with the various trailheads. So we jumped on that shuttle and went to Observation Point, which is right at Weeping Rock. So that is a 8-mile hike, supposedly. It was going to take about 6 hours is what they told us, and it was already 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we like to be ambitious.
And wasn't it raining when we started?
Yeah, right? It started pouring right when we got there.
That's right. And we're about to embark on a 6-hour hike.
Yes, that's what they told us. So, but there was no turning back. We don't have a lot of time.
That's right. Make the most of it.
Exactly. So I think we started, Weeping Rock is right there. Is where that little sort of half-mile out and back where we started, where the water sort of has been coming through the sandstone for 1,200 years, and then you see it dripping down, right?
Yeah, that's right. It starts at the top and works its way down.
So took that in, and then we headed up. Weeping Rock, it's the shortest trail in the park. It's got the hanging gardens and whatnot, and so if you're going to do that, it's worth a quick little jaunt over, I think.
Yeah, and for those who, want to see a cool sight and don't want to necessarily get on the trail per se, it's also handicap accessible for the most part, which is kind of neat to have trails that are accessible for people of all abilities.
It
of
is,
course.
Absolutely. And this kind of turned out to be a blessing in disguise. We were so focused on hiking Angel's Landing that we sort of overlooked Observation Point and didn't really know a tremendous amount about it going into it, but it turns out it's really kind of the most iconic view in the whole park once you get up there.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the terrain kind of changes as you switch backing up to the top of the mountain, which was really cool to see. And then, of course, the view, once we got to the top of Angel's Landing was incredible. And if we did Angel's Landing, we wouldn't get to see that view because you're on it, so you can't see the size and really get the spatial awareness of how big Angel's Landing truly is.
It's good, yeah. And you're up at observation. Angel's Landing is like 700 feet down below you. It's like, that's where we would have been.
Right, and you have the straight shot. That's where we had the straight shot of the canyon too, right? Yeah, you can go right up to the edge.
It's great, yeah.
It was nice.
We gained like 2,200 plus feet of elevation on that hike.
Wow.
Spent some time up there and then made it down. I think we hustled through in about 3.5 hours. So
Yeah, which was really cool.
Yeah,
Impressive.
we tend to do that kind of
Yeah.
a little faster, but allow yourself the time they tell you, just in case, depending on your fitness level or hiking level and whatnot. So, but that was, after 7.5 hours doing that, it was pretty crushing. So then we got down and it was time to head over to the Bro-Mantic Bison Ranch I mentioned.
That's right. The Zion Mountain Ranch.
Yeah. So most of the hotels, motels, they're all in Springdale, which is right outside the gates of Zion. The Zion Mountain Ranch that we stayed on was on the other side in Mount Carmel. So we had to drive all the way through. So the Highway 9 actually goes right through Zion.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, enter the park and go in and then come back out. It's like that's the way to go, whether you're wanting to go to Zion or not. If you're just passing through, you got to go there. And it was nighttime by this point. And we went through that tunnel. It's 1.1 miles.
Incredible.
Right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that was neat. And then you pop on through the other side and you're still in the park for a little bit, right?
Yeah, for a little bit. And then you come out, and then the Zion Mountain Ranch is just about 3 miles outside I guess that'd be like the east entrance of the park.
And it was nighttime, as you said, and we arrived, so everything was dark, and we couldn't really get a real picture of what the ranch was like.
Yeah.
And we just checked in real quick and then got directed to our cabin. What room or cabin were we again? Remember?
I don't know, but it was Bro-Mantic cabin
it was
across
very
the street,
romantic.
though.
Yeah.
And we first went into that restaurant, though, the Cordwood that they have on site.
Candlelit.
Yeah, 3 sweaty dudes rolling in to find a bunch of couples having romantic dinners.
Yes,
and
that's right.
Sat down, but that's really the only game in town on that side of the park is you got to eat there. We had no choice. So it was okay. Service was cool, but I probably wouldn't. There's better options out there. No offense, but it was a little pricey for what we got. I didn't really think they did a great job on the food. But
yeah, I would agree. I mean, we've been spoiled with some fantastic eating on our trip, and this wasn't the best. Yeah.
Sorry to those guys, but we
Great
don't want to pull any punches and lead you astray. So yeah, service was awesome. And then we headed back to the room. We travel in threes. Our buddy Wade, 2 beds and a pull-out sofa. I drew the short straw for that. It's like half broken, probably the least comfortable sofa I pulled out, but I've had to sleep on these trips. But whatever, it was fine. We got up the next morning and having coffee and looking at a bunch of bison just roaming around the grounds. Sort of, you quickly forget it.
That's right. I mean, after falling asleep at nighttime, not realizing where you are, and then waking up to this just sprawling land with bison roaming around and horses as well.
Yeah.
The horses were being can't remember what it's called, but the horses were
trotted around, exercising.
Yeah, it was
chickens.
Awesome.
It was good.
Yeah,
it might be a little more
apple trees outside of
apple
our room
trees.
too.
Yeah, they grow all their own food.
Yep.
A lot of farm to table stuff.
Yep.
Maybe it's better suited for a couple or even a family, but have you ever stayed on a bison ranch? We have.
Yep.
So it was good. So that sort of wrapped up the first night, and then our first full day, the second day, we had to get up at 4:00 in the morning. Reason being, if you recall, they were closing the road.
That's right.
Back through Zion, and we were going to go canyoneering, and if we didn't make it through, it was like a 3.5 hour detour to get around.
That's right.
So got up, went through, and where did we go? Deep Creek Coffee Company, because we were back through well before we actually had to meet up with our guide, and that was the first place to open. And solid breakfast and a really, really good nitro cold brew, which
absolutely
is my thing.
It's kind of your thing.
I love it.
Yeah. Our thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So hung out there, watched the sun come up, and then Zion Rock and Mountain Guides is where we went for the canyoneering. So we went and met up with those guys, had a little quick orientation, popped in the van, and headed out. So where they took us to was Water Canyon. It's probably about an hour drive, right? It's on the backside of Zion, and behind this town called Hilldale, which was interesting.
Yeah.
It's as described by our guide, it's a polygamous town.
Yeah.
And they really just don't like the government in their business, so they continually are working on their houses and have always having a construction permit. So I guess the point of that is it's never completed, so they never have to pay property taxes or whatever. It's our guide's story that he told us, so I don't know. I didn't fact check it, but like everything has a piece of plywood still being worked out on the outside. So
yeah, that's right. And sometime along the trip, we did end up stopping at one of the restaurants. I can't remember if that was the way there to Water Canyon or.
I was on the way to Bryce Canyon the next day.
Okay, I'll table that.
So yeah, Water Canyon. So we got there and we hiked up. First thing we did was hike up about 900 feet, and then started canyoneering. And for me, it was my first experience with that. You have done some climbing and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
I've done some climbing, never done canyoneering, so I didn't fully know what to expect, but it was an incredible trip. I mean, definitely worthwhile doing. I would do it again. I would like to do more challenging stuff, as I'm sure you would too.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
It's good. I was mildly nervous, leaning off the back of a cliff, 150-foot cliff the first time. That's your rope, and you just got to put the trust in. But the guides and Zion Mountain Rock, they did a great job. I think anybody could really do. You don't need to have any experience.
You don't.
Kind of the point.
Exactly.
Journal fitness, and from what the guide told us, he's had families and people of all ages and experience levels out there, and everybody manages to do it. So don't be afraid. It's cool. Once you get through that first one, then the rest were easy.
Exactly. And he kept pushing us too, which was kind of cool. He gave us the option. So the neat thing about this tour is we were able to kind of create our path, based on our confidence level. And, we chose to, continually do more challenging drops and climbs. And that was a good time.
Yeah, the one I thought was cool, he let us, we did a rappel down into this little slot, and there was a big swimming hole at the bottom.
That's right.
And he made it so that we got towards the bottom. We just let go and fell off the rope.
That's right. The end of the rope, was there. The plunge.
Yes.
Right? It was called the plunge.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a good time.
It was cool.
Yeah.
It was a nice, unique way to cool off there.
Absolutely.
We continued through that. I think we did about a half dozen of the rappels. We had to swim across a little pond with holding our packs in the air to get by, because there's no other way to get through. So.
Yeah, and sometimes during the year that water level is low, sometimes it's high. So yeah.
Sometimes you could walk through or wade through, but we had to literally swim our packs through.
Yeah.
It's cool. And then we stopped by the waterfalls and had some lunch, and then headed back. And then when we got back to the van, the guide took us on some like dirt back roads, and we got to see sort of the backside of Zion that you wouldn't ordinarily see unless you knew where you were looking for and going that way.
That's right. And some great views of some of the mountain ranges around there as well. I recall that.
Yeah.
That was a neat drive back.
It's good. It was a good, like, kind of a half day adventure that we did. And we got back to Springdale, where the guide location is, around 2:00. And then it was time to hike some more.
That's right.
So
that's what we do.
We went to the Narrows.
That's right.
It's super crowded. A lot of people there, because it's like, again, easily accessible, and you're not really gaining elevation. You're just literally hiking in the Virgin River. So you're going to want to have some sturdy footwear, waterproof. You can go back there. You can hike it from the bottom up or the top down. And I always get it backwards, but basically top down is like a couple day venture. You got to have a permit and stuff. Or when you go the bottom up, just from where we were from the main trailhead, you can hike back as far as you want, up to like 10 miles, and then you just turn around and come back. Wall Street, a couple of the other areas along the Narrows where we got to check out, and we went out. And
yeah, it's pretty challenging though. Was it you that tripped on a rock, or?
Oh, of course it was.
Probably was you.
Yes.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah. It is kind of sketchy terrain, because you can't see the water underneath you. You can't see through the water underneath you, and you're essentially bouldering to some extent, where you're walking on boulders and they're slick. And so yeah, definitely have good protective feet wear. I think I opted for no shoes a period of time.
Yep.
And
that worked out.
It was okay. It was good, But I would definitely wear shoes, good ankle support. Some people had sticks, to help kind of guide their path. I mean, those are all good suggestions to take.
Yeah, and they have a whole bunch of walking sticks supposedly available, but they're all quickly grabbed up by everybody. So
right,
probably want to bring your own if you're looking to use that.
Yeah, and during this time, it also started raining again, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yeah. And the Narrows has the chance of having flash flooding as well. So you kind of have to be mindful of that.
Exactly. Thanks for bringing that up. That's super critical. Like, there's been people that have, lost their lives and stuff back there because they weren't.
So check the weather report.
Yep.
I think that's would be the sentiment there.
Before you go in, and just, they're pretty good about making announcements. The shuttle drivers will kind of give you the heads up when you're.
Yeah. And there's rangers as well that are spread out periodically.
Absolutely. So we got done with that, and that was a heck of a day between that hike and the canyoneering. Got cleaned up, and then drove all the way back through again. So 14 miles is the distance through Zion that Highway 9 goes. So we did a lot of the back and forth. This was the first time. So the day we got there, we did observation point, drove in the dark to the Bison Ranch, had to get up at 4 a.m., drove in the dark back through the park to get to the canyoneering. So this was the first time to sort of complete the drive in the daylight and
really
take it all in. It's like, gee, look at all the stuff we'd been passing we didn't even see.
Yeah.
So back and forth, Jack's Sports Grill was like the first Thursday night football game. So it's cool to
I'm
just
a big
take
football
a
fan.
You know me. Yeah, you know you.
Yeah.
And good pub fare, cool atmosphere, and just
good food.
Yeah, good.
Great food.
Burgers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And got to unwind and take a load off, and that sort of wrapped up that first full day that we had there. And we went back and got some rest, and we were getting ready for Bryce Canyon the next day. So being on the Mount Carmel side of Zion shaved off a little bit of time on that drive. It's about 70 miles from the Bison Ranch then to get to Bryce. So we headed out there and went first to the Navajo Loop Trail, if you'll remember.
Yes.
So that's, again, one of the most popular trails. It's pretty short. So it's only like 1.5 miles. And then you can add Queen's Garden, which we did. And that turns into about a 3-mile hike or so. But they got a high concentration of the hoodoos.
That's right. Hoodoo.
You do. Yeah. So these big sandstone spires that I guess stick up out of they're pole-like shafts of rock protruding from the bottom of the basins is what my note says.
Yeah, it's crazy. How are those created again? Is it through erosion that they're actually created, where the ground around it comes down? I believe that's what I recall.
I think
it's not like tectonic plates where they come together and push rock up.
Right, it's a lot of erosion.
The erosion, the level of earth used to be at the top of the hoodoos, and they kind of
millions and millions and millions of years. So
it's amazing.
So that the Navajo Loop Trail descended really fast, and then we passed Wall Street. They got a lot of things called Wall Street. Yeah, different Wall Street.
Right. Yeah,
it's got that huge tree,
the pine
sticking
tree
up in the middle.
Yeah,
it's kind of cool. It's like the marker that you're there, and then Twin Bridges, and then when you ascend back up the rim, you pass that really huge hoodoo, and they call it Thor's Hammer.
Yeah,
it's got that big Thor's Hammer looking thing on top.
Right.
So that was about 3 miles, little intro to Bryce Canyon, but we're typically a little more ambitious, and we wanted to find another hike. So we had the old newspaper again. They gave us when we went into Bryce.
The newspaper,
and I think we wanted to find sort of something a little more off the beaten path that isn't highly trafficked. That's kind of what we like to do. Is get a little more seclusion, and Fairyland Loop seemed to be.
Yeah. Seemed kind of magical too. I was hoping to see, we did. I mean, but to, experience something that you wouldn't see every day.
Yeah.
And the name kind of cued us up to wander that direction.
It did.
And we did.
Yeah. 8 miles and 1,600 feet of elevation we did on that one. So again, this one took us just under 3 hours. They say 4 to 5 and bring a lot of water. But remember, we were like, literally the farthest point out, like 4 miles out, and the skies opened up and downpoured on us.
It's pretty epic. I mean, we're crossing this, between two mountain ranges, so to speak. We come up, we're on the top of the mountain, and we're crossing over this land bridge, and the wind is howling. We're in a breezeway, so to speak. We're just, all the elements just started. And wasn't Wade wearing tennis shoes?
Yes.
Yeah, Wade, the other guy that came on the trip and was on the podcast last time, was wearing tennis shoes. Yeah. He was slipping around. Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's kind of sketchy. But we made it. Made it through.
We made it, and it sort of relented after about 30 minutes, thank goodness. It was just blowing at us sideways, and it was so wide open, there was nowhere to take cover.
Yeah.
We
were totally exposed because we're at the top.
Yeah.
You know, we're above the tree line.
Just keep going or dig a hole.
Yep.
So that was the options. And then they have Tower Bridge there was along the way just before the rain. Want to make sure you said it. It's a little like...
Oh, that's the one that was off the path a little bit.
Yeah, it's
right?
a little spur out, maybe like 300 yards, and then it comes back, and it looks like the Tower of London. That's what they call it, the Tower Bridge.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you take that in. And then once you get back sort of to the top, you intersect with the rim trail. Mm-hmm. And then I'll take you back to the trailhead.
Just backtracking too real quick, you know, some of those moments that you have when you're just so exposed and you're just getting beaten down. I mean, that was one of those things when you're in the moment, it's kind of miserable to some extent. Yeah. You know, it's kind of nerve-wracking because it was pretty slick ground, and, you know, the elevation, we're pretty high up, and we're the furthest point we could possibly be, and we're all parents, you know, or we're all, you know, fathers, we have children and wives at home, you know, and you question yourself. You're like, wow, should I really be doing this?
Right, what I get myself into.
But obviously once you complete it, looking back, that was a really memorable experience, and I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. And like, you could easily spend many days in Bryce Canyon. We only had the one day.
Yep.
And I think if you have one day and you're up for motoring while you're there, I think what we did, those two hikes, really gave us a good summary, I don't know, for lack of a better word, of the park, and just being able to see all of it.
Absolutely.
So we headed back, and we stopped. There's a place called the Thunderbird Restaurant, and they're famous for their homemade pie, as the sign says. We were instructed that we had to go there.
Yeah.
It's a picture of the sign on the blog on the website, so you can see what we're talking about. But they call it homemade, and it's good pie. And we had dessert before dinner because we can. Cause,
exactly.
You know, it's the point of these trips and the fun. Do whatever. Some hot apple pie with buttered rum sauce. Give us the jolt to sort of get ready for our last evening before we had to head home the next day. We went back to cleaned up, back to Springdale, all the way through the park again for dinner. And we were walking, and there was, you remember this deer was just walking down the sidewalk?
I sure do. Yeah.
Just didn't care about us or
minding its own and doing its thing.
Yeah. Didn't touch him or nothing, but I'm sure you probably
got some pictures.
Yeah.
I think we got some pictures.
Just walking with us.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
And we went to dinner for the last night. We went to the Zion Pizza Noodle Company.
Yeah.
And it was in an old Mormon church that's now a restaurant.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty good. Probably one of the best. You know, this whole trip was sort of, we didn't get as many crazy restaurants as we do on some of the other ones, but I think that was pretty cool. They have their themed pizzas. I wrote a couple of them down because I remember they have the cholesterol hiker, the tree hugger, the hot and spicy Southwestern burrito pizza. I think my favorite was the Thai chicken that we actually had. And then right across the street is the Springdale Candy Company.
Yeah.
So
we had dessert again.
Of
course.
So dessert appetizer, dessert for dessert.
Yep.
Burning 1 million calories all these hikes. So
that's what you do.
You got to replace them.
You do have to.
Easily justified.
Exactly.
So
balance your energy.
That's right. So that was the last full day, and then that was Friday, and then Saturday morning we got up to make the drive back. We stopped one last drive through Zion and stopped at Mimi's Cafe, and that's that crepe restaurant. They have all these crazy crepes, right?
Yep, remember that.
It's really good, and then espresso and all the good stuff to get ready for our drive home. Drive back was pretty uneventful. We did it on a Saturday. We like to travel like this because then that gives you Sunday to sort of hang out with your family and recover, so to speak, and spend some
because
quality
the work
time.
week, it all starts up again.
It's going to start
on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's good to have that buffer day in there. So that was a trip. It was just another drive back, cross through. You're sort of in 4 states on that drive, right? California, Nevada, Arizona, and then Utah. So it's a pretty cool drive.
Yeah.
And then a couple of notes about it. So if you're going to Zion, I think you got to plan on going to Bryce, right?
Absolutely.
Or vice versa, because the proximity they are to each other, makes it well worth going to both. And then as far as the park passes go, each individual national park you enter is $35. Mm-hmm. So $35 to get into Zion, and these passes are good for a week. $35 to get into Bryce. $70. For $80, you get a America the Beautiful pass. Mm-hmm. Gets you into all the national parks, and it's good for a year. So probably should have done that in hindsight.
Yep.
Put that together. We've done that since on some of our other trips.
This last trip, yeah.
Yeah. But it's good, even if you think you'll have a chance to go to another area in between, save a few bucks and get yourself dialed in.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. 2,000 federal recreation sites it'll get you into. So, and that wrapped up the trip. It was pretty epic. I don't know.
Great planning, Todd.
Canyoneering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Bryce Canyon. Yeah. Homemade pie.
Yeah. Nitro cold brew.
Pizza. Bison ranch pizza.
Yeah.
What more could you ask for?
Yeah. Plunging.
Yep. Yeah. Very cool.
Buffalo ranch. There's a lot there.
There was a ton. Yeah. And
I mean, really just 2 full days.
Two full days. And we did observation point even on the other half day. So we go wire to wire on these trips. Wade and I talked about on the last podcast, just kids and families and everything. Time's a precious asset.
It really is.
Really for everybody, regardless of what you're doing, you want to make the most of it. So if you follow along with this, you can really squeeze in the most to maximize it for it. So that's going to do it here. You can find all the info from the podcast. So there's the blog post with pictures. We have the maps uploaded of the actual hikes we did, so you can see exactly where we went, how long it took, all that. It's on travel. The Travel Fuel website is travel-fuel.com. You can also find links to all of our social on there, Travel Fuel 61, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it. Give us a review.
Like
it. Thumbs up. You can subscribe on our YouTube channel too. If you want to see, Scott is with me today. He's real pretty, so you can watch that. And I want to thank Ben Gonzalez for his pro bono work here, recording this stuff for us. So couldn't have put these together without him. So thanks again for listening. Hope we fuel some inspiration for your next adventure, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.